Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode
Okay.
of the Love Fruit podcast. And today I am joined by my friend Roshni Karia, who at the moment I believe is still living in Thailand and has been there for, I think, 2 years or more now consistently, and has been living a fruit-based, raw diet, vegan. And I met Roshni a number of years ago at the UK festival, UK Fruit Fest, and since then, I bumped into her in Thailand and we reconnected again. And then we decided to do the podcast again, do an interview. I thought her story would be great for people to hear. And she's had a very interesting lifestyle living in Thailand and sometimes just living on the beach, sometimes literally. And you know, kind of living the dream that a lot of people would like, I think. And so it'd be good to hear more about that and more about your story, Roshni. Is there anything you would like me to say in introduction to you?
Well, thank you for the wonderful introduction that you already gave, Ronnie. And yeah, I'm just looking forward to sharing a bit about the journey into, I guess, inner peace and the fruits.
Awesome, awesome. So, um, I guess I don't know a lot about your upbringing and stuff. I'm guessing you're from England, and was it a kind of conventional lifestyle in terms of how you ate, how you were brought up, or was it a bit different?
Well, it was a bit different. Well, yeah, I'm born and raised in England, in Surrey, in sort of on the outskirts of London, and it was kind of like half conventional, half not. Because of course, if you live somewhere, you're going to have a bit of the culture from there. You're going to have a bit of the mannerisms, all the rest of it. But my parents are not born and raised in England. They're both from East Africa, so and their ancestors are from some part of India. So it's kind of a mix of three different cultures then, because you've got the British culture from just being born and raised there, then the East African culture for the fact that my parents grew up there and my grandparents also, and then my ancestors before that, if you go back far enough, there's a bit of Indian culture, and I think that influenced a bit of why I was born and raised as a vegetarian. So that was a bit different because I didn't really meet that many people at school who were raised vegetarian.
Right.
I was the kind of vegetarian kid. Yeah, all my friends around me ate meat, and my parents didn't force me into being vegetarian. They just simply explained what it was, that the meat came from an animal, and they told me what animals the meat came from, and then I didn't want to eat it. So it was a choice. But it was a bit of, that was a bit slightly different.
Right. So would I be right in thinking that I know that a lot of people of Indian background were living in East Africa and were kind of thrown out at one point, especially people living in Uganda. Were they part of that
Yeah,
diaspora or?
yeah. My dad was part of that, so he left Uganda in 1972 because of, as you may know, Idi Amin. Um, so Idi Amin decided that he'd had enough of the Asians in Uganda and decided to boot them all out. So a lot of them ended up in the UK.
That's
So
yeah, that's what I was
my
thinking.
family, and my mum's side of the family is from Kenya, so she came for slightly different reasons. But my dad's side of the family, yeah, just literally ended up 1st of September 1972 in a autumn day in the UK. Just landed there, and recently my dad was telling me it's 49 years, I think, if my math is correct. 1972, 1892, 2002, 2002. Yeah, nearly 50 years. Nearly 50 years, so a long time. But I mean, my dad lived there for 17 years of his childhood, so still there's some, like, I grew up eating matoke, which is like Ugandan cooking bananas, and things like cassava, which not, I guess not many people in the UK knew at the time, but my parents knew about it, so that's the stuff I was eating as a kid. It wasn't vegan, it wasn't raw, but it was vegetarian.
Did you eat a lot
Yeah.
of
Oh, I
dairy?
guess it is vegan.
Right, yeah. Did you eat a lot of dairy products?
I was a bit of a fussy eater when I was a kid, to be honest. I didn't really want to eat that much. I just wanted to drink all the time. So I was a bit of a fussy kid to even get any food down me. So I didn't. I guess yeah. We did eat dairy products. Milk with cereal and stuff like that. But I was never really a fan of. I just preferred to slurp things, to drink things. But yeah, I did eat dairy products, and especially more at university in my first year, because being a vegetarian, they thought, oh, the vegetarians don't get meat, so we'll put a load of cheese on everything and a load of butter on everything and whatnot. And I was catered in my first year. So in first year at university, before I went vegan, I ended up eating quite a lot of dairy products. In fact, that might even be what made me want to be vegan, because I had more dairy products in my whole life just in that first year of university, where I thought, oh my gosh, what am I, this doesn't feel good for my body.
Sure. And what were you studying, and what was the university you went to?
So I studied history, and I went to Royal Holloway, University of London, and it's not the prison. People often say to me, like, what did you do? And I'm like, well, I did history. They think I'm going to say some crime or something. No, it's not the women's prison. There is a women's prison called Holloway Prison in London, but it's not the same place. I just thought I'd clarify that.
Yeah, and I know that I don't know a lot about your different jobs you've done, but I know one of the jobs you did was you were a quiz question writer for, is it Pointless, or one of the like really well known quiz shows, or was it The Chaser or something?
Pointless was offered to me, but I didn't do that one yet. There was a few. There was The Chase, and there was a few others, and that was an interesting part of my job history, along with being a librarian and many other things. So it's kind of a different, opposite lifestyle I'm living right now. But I'm glad that I was part of that. That job taught me a lot, and I made some very beautiful friends from it. So I'm very thankful for that.
Yeah, and you said to me that if there's a question about vegans or about fruit in some of these shows, that there's a good chance that you made the question.
Yes. Well, there was one, I think I remember writing, it was about the veganuary. Veganuary is a pledge to be vegan in which month? So if there's any fruit questions on there, I may or may not be responsible, but there's a high chance I very well might be.
So
it's a good opportunity.
So when did you start? You saying in university you started to go vegan? Is that right?
Yeah, it was towards the end of the first year, to be honest, when I still had a few months left. So I was taking a bit of a risk because I was catered. For the first year, I lived in halls, and I picked the catered accommodation because I thought it'll be easy for me not to cook when I'm bogged down with all the uni work. So I had this catered halls, and as I said, a lot of the food was very dairy heavy because they thought, oh, these vegetarians, otherwise they'll just be eating salad and that's all. So they gave us a lot of dairy products and things like that. And I think just something inside me started to say to me, this doesn't feel good. And I remember I went to visit a friend at university. I think it was around June, and I remember eating this cheese and tomato pizza with her, which was a go-to meal for me normally. And I think it was, when was it I went to visit her? And I just remember thinking, I even said to her, like, is it not a bit strange, like we're eating like breast milk from a cow? And she was, no, it's, this is normal, what people do. And I just couldn't. That was the last time I can remember eating cheese, because it just felt so strange to me after that. Like, I don't know, it had been building for a few months, and then and at uni it was interesting because they didn't really have vegan options at all at that point. Now they do. Now their vegan options are amazing, because I've been there even 2 years ago before I came to traveling this time, and a friend showed me around, and they've got more vegan options than non-vegan options, which is a miracle, because at that time they just about had soya milk in the little uni shop. So they've come a very long way. And it was kind of bit of a challenge to get anything vegan. Even if I wanted a potato with like baked beans on it or something, oh, they'd already put butter on the potato or something like that.
Yeah.
And then I ended up eating chips and beans for a very long time, because I didn't feel comfortable eating the cheese and all this stuff anymore. And then I didn't know the reasons why I was wanting to be vegan. I honestly, I didn't really know much about it. I didn't really realize that was what being vegan was. I just had a feeling that this stuff doesn't feel right in my body, so I just naturally gravitated away from it. And then later found out about the ethical reasons and the environmental reasons and all the other reasons to do it, the health reasons. And this motivated me further. But initially it was because of just this feeling that it doesn't feel good right now to be doing this. The energy didn't feel good of it anymore.
Right. So it was kind of a personal intuition more than any kind of outside influence.
Yeah, in fact, I used to think like vegans were extreme. I used to think like, what, why are they doing this? I used to think it was a bit strange until I started to have this feeling, and I wasn't even really clued up on what vegan meant. It was like I briefly, I think I'd heard it thrown around maybe once or twice, and I just thought it's people who restrict their eating a lot. I really wasn't. I was very ignorant. I didn't have a clue.
Sure.
And then when I got this feeling that I didn't really want to be eating these things anymore, then people asked me, "Are you vegan?" And I said, "Well, yeah, I guess I am. If it means that they don't eat animal products, then yeah."
So it sounds like you didn't really it doesn't sound like you got influenced, but did you start to learn about veganism or go to any groups or meet other friends like that or anything like that?
Yeah, this was it. Yeah, this was it. Like, I actually met a couple people at my uni who were trying to establish a vegan and vegetarian society, and I got talking to them, and they were telling me the reasons, why they don't eat this stuff, and it really got me thinking. I thought, oh wow, maybe that's why I feel like this, because I was vegetarian for ethical reasons. I was vegetarian because I didn't want to be harming animals when I didn't need to, and when I knew I could live a healthy life without it. So when they were talking about these environmental reasons, these ethical reasons, I kind of really felt like, oh yeah, this is why. And then we actually stood up in front of all the society members of, the presidents of all the societies of this university, and this is what we had to do in order to get the Royal Holloway Vegan and Vegetarian Society established. I remember we were sort of nervously looking at these pieces of paper and reading out, and all the society, like, I think it's a high percentage of the society presidents have to say yes if you want to get your society approved, and they passed it. So that's when it was established, and it was a beautiful thing, because now I'm sure I've heard it's grown a lot. I've heard it's grown a lot since that time. So
Yeah.
they really, they kind of were the first people that raised the ethical concerns to me, and then I realized that there's a deeper reason why I'm doing this.
And along this time, I know you were mentioning earlier that you were or you are on or like this kind of path of inner growth, and was that something you were aware of at that time as well?
To be honest, when I was vegetarian, not really. I was so consumed in my own little world, didn't really think about much else. There was also a lot of things going on at school and at home, and it was more when I became vegan, and even more when I became raw, especially when I became raw, that this stuff really started to come up to the top, because it just felt like a lot of the brain fog was gone. When I was vegan, I was having a lot of brain fog still, because I wasn't exactly eating things that were healthy for me. I tell people that I was breadtarian, which was the truth. I was really, honestly, I wanted to write a book. People said I should write a book one day called Breadtarian to Breatharian, but I'm not breatharian, so I can't really write that book. But breadtarian for sure. Like, I would eat, drink, sleep bread like it was my life. Bread was my life. Bread and pasta and anything like that. and it just, I felt very brain foggy, and I only realized that this was the case when I stopped having it. So I wasn't really able to concentrate that much when I was vegan. I found it very difficult. I was eating onions and garlic and stuff like that as well, which I find now makes it hard for me to concentrate, so I don't have it. But definitely it was more like end of 2017 when I was a few months already raw, that the spiritual side of things and the inner growth really started to be something more important in my life.
And how did you start to go towards raw?
It was kind of the same thing as what got me to go vegan, to be honest. This just a feeling inside my heart and my gut. And I was having many health problems at the time, of being underweight, of malnutrition. I had all these white marks all over my nails. I was having a lot of brain fog, and I was on these anxiety tablets called citalopram, which didn't really affect me so well. And I was on the lowest dose of it, but I was still struggling with the anxiety, and also sometimes not being able to feel anything at all, which felt even worse than the anxiety. So I was having a few challenges. I was having low blood pressure and feeling dizzy all the time, and I was kind of a bit desperate what to do. And I didn't really realize that this feeling of wanting to eat more fruit was connected to that desperateness of trying to get myself well again. And I'd met briefly a couple of people who were raw. One when I did the work away in Spain, a man who'd healed the cancer because of being raw. And another man when I was volunteering at an ultramarathon, marshalling it. And one of the guys there who I was congratulating afterwards, he told me he was raw, and he'd been an addict of alcohol, cigarettes and drugs and everything before, and he'd turned his life around. And it was amazing to literally talk to people like this face to face firsthand. And it really made me, at the time I didn't think much of it, but I realized now that it dropped the drops of water in the bucket. It planted the seed. And a few years later, then I was, I don't know, I just had this feeling like, I just felt a pull to try and eat more fruits. And I think my case is quite unusual in a way, because I didn't really do any reading up on it. The first time I read Arnold Ehret's book was 2 months ago. I didn't know anything about him at that time. I didn't know anything really about anyone. And it was just these two guys that I'd met by chance that had told me about the raw food quite a couple of years before. So it was just, honestly, it was a feeling. It was following that feeling.
Very cool, very cool. And how did it start off for you? Did you start eating more fruit and it went from there, or how did it go?
Yeah, it did. I started eating, I was eating mainly raw food until dinner time. So I was eating raw food in the daytime, and then when I used to get home from work, I'd make myself some cooked meal. And gradually it got to the point where, okay, in the beginning I was still eating rice, I was still eating bread, the dense things, and then towards the end of it, it was mainly oats and it was mainly fruits. But I didn't realize that oats were so heavy on my mind and my body, because I used to love them. They used to fill me up, they were convenient, I didn't have to keep on eating loads of fruit if I ate the oats. And then one time I forgot to put the oats on my shopping list and forgot to buy them. And that's the first time I found out that oats weren't the best thing for me, and that I could eat a lot more fruit if I didn't eat the oats. And that actually, it felt great without them. Otherwise it probably wouldn't have happened.
And you just went from there and kept on eating raw?
Yeah, because it felt so great the first 2 weeks. I felt like I was, I don't know, it felt like a drug almost. It felt like this can't be real. How can I have this much energy to spare? I was going to work and I was feeling so good. When's the last time I had this much energy? Probably as a little kid or something. I felt like I could do anything. I felt kind of like invincible. I was just boundless amounts of energy for this 2 weeks. And it felt so good. I just thought to myself, okay, let's see how far I can take this thing. If it stops feeling good, I'll stop doing it. But it did actually stop feeling good after 2 weeks, because I felt after that, to be honest, quite depressed for the next 3 months, because I didn't really realize at the time initially, but I had stopped suppressing the things that I was pushing down with cooked food. I didn't even know I had anything to suppress. And then it just started coming up. And I thought like, oh blimey, where's this coming from? I didn't really have much physical detox at all. It was 99% emotional. It was just these, like a real feeling of just not any excitement about life, not wanting to really be alive anymore. Very unusual for someone like me, who most people would probably agree I'm quite an optimist, and normally I turn things around quite quickly. If I'm feeling down, it will usually be gone soon, but this was a real knockout. Like, this was, it just hit me for six. I didn't know what was going on. And then I started to realize that, okay, the fruits is not causing this, the fruits is exposing this. And that's when I thought, okay, I'm going to stick with it. Let's see what happens. But it was scary because at times I guess it could have gone either way. Like, I really didn't want to be alive. It was one of the lowest points I've ever been to. And yeah, when the suffering got too much, it went away by itself. But I thought I transitioned gradually, and I still had this, but then there was a lot of emotional suffering to come out.
Well, and
Yeah.
do you have any fears about the diet? Because a lot of people would be worried about not getting enough nutrients and all the rest of it. Did you have any worries about that?
Well, this is the thing. My body actually felt good. It was my mind that was the mess. And I knew that my body wanted me to eat fruits. I could feel it, and there was no negative body effects from eating fruit. I felt so good in my body and so weak in my mind, and this was what was quite confusing at first. But I could feel that my body wasn't telling me not to eat it. It was trying to encourage me to keep on eating the fresh food, the raw living food. And so I did, and it was heavy for the ego to handle, for my mind to handle, because obviously if I start feeling everything, I start releasing it, and this is not what the ego wants at all.
Sure, sure. Yeah, and it's interesting you're talking about the emotional side of it and the mind part of it. Where do you think that came from? Is that things that were a real part of your life that you hadn't thought about before, or what?
Yeah, for sure. Like, I now looking back on it, obviously when a little kid is in it, they don't realize if they had a turbulent childhood or not, because they think that's all that there is. What they're experiencing is, they may think that's what everyone experiences. Now looking back on it and hearing about how other people grew up, and I am very thankful for the way I grew up, because it has taught me the most I think it could have taught. Like, it really has taught me a lot, and I think the strength, whatever strength I have today, is credit to that. And sometimes it's the hardest things that make us the strongest. They say that the tree knows how deep its roots are when there's a storm. So now looking back on it, I do think there were many turbulent things that happened in childhood, but I'm thankful for it, because, to be honest, unless that suffering happened, who knows whether I'd be where I am today. Because it's the suffering that, for me, tends to be a huge motivator, because if the pain of now isn't that much, we don't feel that motivated to change, or I don't anyway. But when the pain of now gets enough, then we change. And I feel like the experiences I had sometimes in childhood gave me that material, gave me that stuff to have build up. So then the top of the bottle can pop. The pressure builds up enough, then it can release.
And what would be your tips for people on how to deal with those emotional things when they come up? How did you manage to deal with it? I think a lot of people would have crumbled and tried to suppress it again.
One thing I will say as well is that I feel like it's never over, like I still have things coming up now, things from, for example, recent circumstances. And it's so funny what universe, I feel it does. It's like, when I think I've got everything together, when I feel I've got it all figured out, it'll come and it'll pull the rug from under my feet, and I don't see it coming. And it just reminds me that, wow, I've got a lot of growing left to do. So by all means, I'm not done yet, and I'll never be done. And this is the beauty of life, that we keep on growing, we keep on learning. So I just wanted to say, first of all, I'm not done with that yet. With that growing and learning. And for the tips for people, allow yourself to feel like you don't. It's okay to be upset about something. It's okay to be annoyed about something. It's okay to cry. It's okay to cry. For me, this is a major way to release emotion, to cry, and also to move. to do some exercise, to move my body a little bit, even if it's just some gentle yoga or it's a little walk or something. Normally I go running, but sometimes if I get in a low point, I don't even feel like doing that right now, so like at the time. So even if it can just be a little walk, you know, spending time in nature. If you're in a cold country, it could just be having a little walk around the block or just being barefoot in the grass. And just also sitting by ourselves, which can be really difficult, especially if we don't like the emotions that are coming up. But it's just important to, I guess, to try not to distract ourselves, which can be an easy thing to do. It can be so easy to, you know, go out and do some work, or go out and spend the time with friends, or just spend it not being with ourselves, because then we don't have to think about what's going on. So it's a difficult thing to not distract ourselves, but it's worth it, because then, okay, the suffering builds up, but then it's gone quicker as well. It's released quicker. Whereas if we kind of drip feed ourselves, then and we distract ourselves, and then it takes longer for the suffering to go away, but we don't feel it as intensely.
I often think that there's something about these emotions coming up, that the more that people try to suppress or resist them, which is the instinct is to do that, because emotional
Of course.
pain is like a physical pain as well, and we try and resist that. What I don't know if this is your experience, but I kind of see that the more that you just focus on it and confront it, the quicker that it kind of just disappears, and it's not as powerful as you think. And if you, when you're not using food and everything, that's kind of like your only option in a way.
Yes, exactly. And that's the thing, I didn't even realize that I'd been suppressing my emotions my whole life with food, because it's only when I stopped eating that food that I realized this. And if someone had even said to me whilst I was vegan or vegetarian that, oh, by the way, you've got a load of unconscious suffering inside you that you're suppressing with food, I'd have said to them, no way, like, are you joking me? Like, I wouldn't have understood what they're saying. So I understand as well if people don't get what I'm saying. I feel that that's definitely what I'd been doing. And with the fruit, to be honest, if we don't distract ourselves in other ways as well, there's nowhere to hide. Where can we go? I mean, how much is a cucumber or tomato or an apple or a mango going to satisfy me the same way as a pizza is? It's not the same. It's not the same. A banana can't be compared to a chocolate bar or an ice cream. It's not going to stop you feeling, but it doesn't block the feelings. It allows you to be a vessel so that the emotions can pass through you. They don't get stuck, which in the short term doesn't feel so good, because when we're in the suffering, it can really be painful and feel like a lot of hurt. But then at the same time, it's gone quicker. It doesn't last as long, which, again, when we're in it, it feels like it's going to be forever. We don't know when it's going to go away, and it can be the scariest thing. And I experienced that even recently. That's what I'm saying. I'm not immune to it at all. I go through these things as well, even now, because even though I'm in Thailand, I've been living here for 2 years, not traveling. So then when you're living here, you still have the ups and downs of life, and these things still happen, but that's the thing, when I'm not comforting myself with food, I'm forced to feel it, and then it's gone quicker, and I'm thankful for that. And another thing, just quickly, I realized that the reason why I had all these health issues when I was a kid, like into my adolescence as well, the low blood pressure, the low weight, the brain fog, and all the everything else, was because of a suppression of those emotional feelings. Because there's such a true saying, I can't remember who said it, but it's like, it said that any emotion that cannot be expressed in tears will cause other organs to weep. And I believe that is so true.
Wow. Say that again?
Any emotion that we cannot express in tears will cause other organs to weep.
Wow, that's interesting. And you know, Roger at the Fruit Festival had a book that was kind of the opposite. It said, what was it? The warmth of the heart will stop the body from rusting, or something like that.
I agree. I love that. That's beautiful. It's so true. Exactly. It's like the flip side. It's when we give ourselves love, when we see that inner child, when we acknowledge that inner child, our body doesn't need to show us these it doesn't need to have disease anymore, because disease and dis-ease, it's interesting how that word comes about. It's like an uneasiness will cause these physical symptoms, and when we acknowledge and make ourselves conscious of the emotional things underneath, then the body doesn't have to keep on screaming to us in other ways, like, look what's going on, hey, can you notice me, can you see me, because we've already acknowledged it deep down, the root cause.
Sure. Excellent. Well, okay. So in the story that we've told so far, you went raw for a couple of weeks, you felt amazing, then all this stuff happens for the next 3 months, but you decided to stick with it. And what happened after
Yeah.
that? Did you, at any point in that time, did you try and reach out, get more information from people, read books, or was it just your own personal kind of experiences you were going through?
It was kind of personal experiences, and at the time, like, I couldn't, it was funny because I thought to myself, why is this happening, why can't I get a job right now, why is this all going pear-shaped? But everything happens for a reason. I know that if I'd had a job at the time, it would have distracted me all the way away from this low feeling. It would have given me a sense of self-worth when I had nothing, and it was important that I felt as low as I did, because it's that got me to get out of it. It's that suffering that built up enough so that I couldn't put up with it anymore, and it just left by itself, if that makes any sense. But I didn't read any books, I didn't look up much on it. I was quite ashamed of how I felt at the time, because I thought, like, how can this be happening to me, someone who is usually quite jolly and upbeat, and I never envisaged feeling like that. So I didn't want to even show to the outside world that much that that's what was happening. I tried to cover it up, and there was still a lot of time on my hands, because, as I said, I was in between the work contracts. I didn't have a job at the time, despite how much I looked. If something's not meant to happen, it won't happen, and at the time it wasn't meant to happen. And I was just feeling, like, having a lot of time to feel, a lot of time on my hands. This was really important. And then, when the suffering eventually got too much, that it either felt like I either die or I change, and I didn't have a choice anymore, then it just dropped. It simply got too much to hold on to. Like, if you have something really hot in your hands, at some point it will get so hot that you are forced to let go. So it was a forced surrender. And then I didn't experience that suffering again. I didn't, not to that extent ever. Like, even now, it hasn't been that bad, that severe. And then I finally felt like my mind was in tune with my body, and they were both on the same level, because my body felt good from eating the raw for that long. It felt like it was doing some good to it, but it was just the mind talk and the suffering. So when that suffering went away, then finally I felt okay, like I'm in balance here, mind, body, spirit. And that's when, that 3 months, that was the basis for any spiritual growth, really. Because I more things started to come to me, more realizations, more insights. So this was the start of it.
Interesting. So you felt like your kind of intuition opened up even more?
Yeah, I was getting very interesting dreams as well. Very interesting dreams, because I think it was the food, and I would have sometimes visions of what would happen, or like if I'd lost something, I would ask myself the night before, like, oh, where's this thing? And I have a dream about where it is, and then in the morning I'd go and find it. And it was little things like this that it was like a miracle. I didn't know how this could be, but I guess when you start to eat the things that are easier to digest, so that not all your energy goes to digestion, you got more energy for other things, and this seemed to be where it was going.
So when did you, how long until you started kind of getting this desire to travel and go somewhere else and things like that?
It was soon after becoming raw, because it was then that I felt like my lifestyle didn't fit so much with living in the UK, because when you're eating just fruits, I don't know, I felt like I want to live somewhere where this was intuition telling me this. It wasn't through much else. And I did a few workaways before, when I was still eating the cooked food, In fact, that's where I met one of the guys that was raw when I did a workaway in Spain. That was slightly warm climate. Then I did a 6-7 week workaway in some tiny island called Lipari next to Sicily in Italy. And that was a beautiful warm climate, and I felt so at home there. And then it was finally, it felt like the cold weather in England really pushed me. Again, it made the suffering get to the point where it was easier to change than stay the same. And I'm so thankful for that, because if it had been mild, I probably wouldn't have felt that push. But it really pushed me to try something else. And it's funny, I went to, do you know the place called Kew Gardens in London, where they've got the big greenhouse? Yeah. I'd never been there, and I went there for my 24th birthday with a couple of friends, and I went in the greenhouse. Was it my 24th birthday or 23rd birthday? One of the two, in my early 20s. And I went in one of those greenhouses, and I felt like I was at home in there. For the first time in my life, I felt at home in a greenhouse in Kew Gardens, because it was humid. It was humid, and it felt so right. And I thought, I need to go to the place that I don't have to go in a greenhouse to feel this environment. Yeah. So it was 2018, November 2018, that I eventually bought a one-way ticket to Bali with no planning, no nothing. My parents were horrified in a way that they told me that people normally plan this thing for many months in advance, and I basically took a weekend to plan a 6.5 month trip, and I hadn't even, everything arrived last minute. My rucksack, my tent, everything. It was a very last minute thing. I didn't know I'd be gone for that long. I didn't know when I'd be coming back. So I just went. I didn't even know the weather conditions. I thought it'd be sunny. It turns out it was rainy season in Bali when I got there, because I hadn't planned anything. But even though it was rainy season, I got out of the plane and I felt this humidity, and it felt like I was home. It felt like I was home, and it felt so natural and so right. When you just feel something and it just feels right, and I can't describe it any other way, but I just knew I was in the right place. This environment.
I always feel like when I touch down in a tropical place, that even when you're just in the airport and stuff, it's like there's a different smell as well. I don't know if you experienced that. Like it's really, it's different.
Yeah, it was different, and it just felt so like, I felt like I belonged. I felt like I belonged there. And then when I tried to go back to, I left Southeast Asia in end of May 2019, and I went back to England. I worked for a month, and then I spent the rest of the time, I spent some time in the Netherlands. I spent some time doing a workaway in Spain, which I'd been doing for a few years. My lovely host family that I go back to nearly every year. And then I tried to go back to England, and it just felt so cold. My body had acclimatized to the warm weather. This was it. The only reason I'd managed to live there for 25 years before was because I'd never really been in a warm environment. So I went back and I tried to get used to this again. I couldn't even go outside to pick the leaves up. My bones really felt like they were frozen from the inside, and I felt like I was crumbling, and I just, my body was really struggling to get acclimatized to that environment again. And it was that suffering that pushed me to make a change, because either I accept or I change. So I chose to change my environment again, and I came back to Southeast Asia in November 2019.
How did you find out about the UK Fruit Fest, and when was it you went there?
I think I found out about it somewhere on the internet. I'm pretty sure. Like I actually can't remember, but I think it was somewhere from the internet. I saw some article or something, and it mentioned some fruit fest, or I think I'd been doing a little bit of research at that point. And I just thought it'd be so nice to meet other people that kind of had a similar lifestyle, because I didn't really know anyone in England who was doing that kind of thing. I really didn't know many people. I don't think I knew anyone who was eating raw like that. And I just thought how nice it would be to share and learn as well, because I saw from the previous year that there were lectures and people looked like they're having a great time and eating great food and meeting other people. So I thought, like, why not? I want to give this a go, and I'm so glad I did, because I met some wonderful people there. I met you there. I met some of my other friends there, And it was just such a nice environment, such a friendly environment and an encouraging environment that you can learn and grow in a place like that, and you really feel a sense of community. You really feel a sense of community. So I was truly thankful for this. Yeah,
I think you
I'm
might have
so
said
glad I found out about it.
I think you might have said at the time that it was one of the first times you'd been around a lot of vegans, never mind like raw vegans.
Yeah, I mean, for me, I'd been around. I did have a few vegan friends already, and I'd been to like this vegan camp out and stuff like that. But it was not quite the same energy as somewhere where it's just fruits, because I mean, yeah, it wasn't quite the same energy. And I used to be a very, what I would call, angry vegan. I hold my hands up. I used to be one of those, because I was quite disillusioned at first, and disillusioned at first, and kind of angry that, you know, how can we let this happen to the animals? How can we let this happen to the earth? And I had a lot of suffering inside me at the time, which I hadn't released yet. And so what I felt inside, of course, I would project this outwards, because what we project outwards is a reflection of inside. So I'd get kind of annoyed, and I saw this in other vegans as well, but because I was also in this state myself, I just thought this is normal. So it wasn't quite the same energy as the fruits, and I did have a great time at these events at the time, and it was important. And I did have also many vegan friends that weren't angry vegans. It's not like they were all like that. There was me, and then probably a few others, and I understand that we did the best we could for our understanding at the time. But it was a different vibe at the fruit festival, completely different vibration, not better or worse, but different. And I kind of needed to experience that. I needed to experience that at the time.
And let's talk about your travels then. So you started off in Bali, and how did it go from there?
Well, it was very easy to eat raw in Bali because the fruits were just abundant. It's like in England you have pubs, in in Bali you have fruit shops. There's just so many of them scattered everywhere, and it was so easy to get the fruits. The hostel I was staying in had a passion fruit tree growing there and a water apple tree growing there, so you know, you could really just eat fruit wherever you are. And it felt so natural to be in this environment. It felt so good to kind of be eating from the land, and it just felt so natural. I didn't have to put in any effort. And then I carried on traveling. So from Bali I went to Malaysia, then from Malaysia I went to Thailand, some different islands in Thailand, and then finally Koh Phangan for 4 months in 2019. And it just felt effortless. It was a different ball game from England, because in England I was really having to try more. It didn't feel so natural. I was eating a lot of avocados in England. When I was in my 6 months of traveling the first time round, I think I probably ate avocados 2 or 3 times. I really didn't need so much fat, and this also felt better for my body, because I don't think I'm designed to eat a lot of fat, but even the avocado can be a bit numbing and a bit comforting when I was freezing cold in England.
So you were in Bali for with the first time around was 6 months, and you came back.
I was in Bali for 1 month, and then I went to Malaysia for 2 weeks, and then I started to travel in Thailand, some different places, Krabi and Koh Lanta, and some different islands, and Samui, and then finally Koh Phangan. So Thailand for most of it, and yeah, it was just really amazing to finally feel in my like I was in my natural environment, which, to be honest, I hadn't felt for the last 25 years of my life before.
So, what was your kind of experience of these places? How do they differ? What do you prefer? And were you traveling on your own all this time?
Well, I started off on my own, to be honest. I only had booked the hostel for the first night, so I really didn't know anything. I didn't have a clue. I was a complete beginner. And then I met people in that first hostel who were really lovely, and then we saw a bit more of Bali together. And then I went to a different hostel when those guys left, and I met some more beautiful people who I felt like, you know, soul family. And it was just amazing. Literally, one door closes, another one opens. You just trust in the universe, and it taught me to actually be able to stand on my own 2 feet and to trust myself more. which is always a good thing, and to trust my intuition. And what I loved about being in the East was that there was no fear. This was it. There was no fear. There was no police sirens all the time in the background. There was, you could leave your door open and nothing would happen. I left my purse somewhere once, and I went back, and it was still there. It was still there. Like these little things. Just one time, my friend left his scooter key in the ignition of his scooter. He came back, it was still there. We got spontaneously invited to a Balinese wedding. I mean, where do things like that happen? Yeah. It was a different kind of life where people feel abundant, because I guess I realized when I was there that the people there, they may not have had much materially, but they were rich in here. They were rich in their hearts, right? Richness didn't come from having stuff. Richness came from feeling like you always have enough.
Yeah.
And so they were always offering outwards to people. They were always wanting to help people who were strangers to me. There was a man who helped me fix my tent in the middle of when they was about to have a monsoon chuck down. He helped me fix my tent with the 3 last cable ties that he had. And he was a farmer and an artist, and he painted and he farmed rice, and he saw me in need and helped me. And he knew that we couldn't even speak the same language. We were just about managing to communicate with sign language, improvised sign language. And I will remember him forever, because he literally helped me when I was in such a dire situation. And he knew that I maybe what could I couldn't give him those 3 cable ties back that he needed, and he still helped me out. And it's this amazing kind of unconditional love that when someone knows you can't do anything for them and they still help you, a stranger, it really showed me that there is more to life than money, and actually this made me so fearful. And I've started to feel there that actually strangers are friends that I haven't met yet, rather than in England when we're taught, stay away from strangers. It was a completely different vibration altogether.
Yeah, very cool. So is this your second time traveling, and you've been out quite a while this time round? Do you want to talk about that?
Yeah, it is, and it wasn't on purpose either. But then they say life is what happens when you're not not made these plans. That's when these funny things happen. And I didn't mean to be traveling this long. I left again in November. In fact, on the same day, 26th November. It's been the 26th of November for some reason both times, but that's the day I left again. And that was in 2019, and I haven't been back since. It's been, I guess, in 2 months, exactly 2 months, because it's the 26th today. So in 2 months, I will have been gone 2 years, which I can't believe I'm saying that. And it was a complete accident. Universe has other plans, but I was meant to be gone for about until the spring of 2020, and then obviously that didn't happen because of coronavirus. So I've pretty much been here since then, and my parents and my friends at home were telling me, just stay where you are. You're better off staying in Thailand. So I did.
Yeah, I mean, I was there at the time at the start of COVID.
Exactly.
And
and
so I know a lot of people that are still there. And I mean, literally, I arrived about a week, maybe. I think it may have even been days before everything started. It was really bizarre.
And when did you go back to England? I'm trying to remember when it was. I know you were here for a good few months.
I went back to England at the end of June, or maybe it was start of July, because I was going back for the festival. And and the festival took place in July.
Have you managed to eat mangoes since? You haven't gone off after eating them for 120 days.
It's funny. I did go back, and I kept eating mangoes for a while, but
wow.
By accident, it was weird. I went into the garden, and I was walking around the garden, and I just ate a gooseberry. Totally didn't think about it. Didn't even. There was just a gooseberry there, and I think I was making a video, and I just said like, "Oh, here's some gooseberries," and I just went, "Wait a minute, that's the first thing I've ate that's not a mango in like 4 months."
Wow.
It was so. Then I started eating other things, but yeah, that's still like one of my favorite times of eating. Was just so simple, just eating mangoes all the time.
Yeah,
Brilliant.
it must. Honestly, it takes the effort out of things and the having to think about the things. It's like if you just wear the similar clothes every day, you don't have to think, oh, what am I going to wear? I guess it's the same with the food. If you're eating the mangoes and your body knows what to expect, you know what to expect, and it's intensely cleaning, that kind of mono-meal, I guess.
And I felt that like my productivity and creativity kind of increased because I think I've got a problem with sometimes reaching for certain foods. Um, Eat like you're talking about the avocados, or for me, like sometimes the nightshades, the tomatoes, things like that, or certain things. Um, when I when it's a distraction, you know, I sometimes it's like some of those things for me are a little bit distracting, whereas mango or something like that is just it's not I don't really find it stimulating in that way. It just gives me good energy, like it makes me want to go and do things and like so I ended up like I even like wrote a book over there and stuff like that. Like I got stuff together and
Wow.
I was doing more stuff than usual and I felt like really like just no distraction or whatever. So that's something I liked about the mango diet as well.
Did you feel any emotional? I hope you don't mind me asking you this. I know you're asking me questions, but I hope you don't mind if I ask you something about that. Did you feel some emotional detox from eating the mangoes for that long, or?
I don't think so. I don't think I really did. I'm trying to think if there was any specific moment. Uh, and the funny thing is, like, I went through sort of a breakup at that point as well. So that was
Sure.
all about. That was a bit weird, but it was kind of like I was ready for those things in terms of I don't specifically remember anything coming up, but uh, I did a little bit of counselling. I talked to a friend at a
Yeah.
time, and but overall, I don't think, and I think basically because I'd been raw for so long before that, and I'd had times where I'd been on just fruits for a lot. I'd never done like one fruit, but I'd had times when I'd been on like very simple diet for like months or close to a year or whatever. So
Yeah.
I never, I don't think I'd had that, had the same experience there. Um, but yeah, I think that I think I'm quite good at processing emotion fairly quickly now. Like
Yeah.
I don't resist it. I just try and like totally I kind of just accept in my own mind like, oh, I'm gonna feel really bad about this. You know, I just like I'm gonna feel really sad. I'm gonna feel really I just try and like totally
Yeah.
accept it as quickly as possible. I think the mistake is trying to like push it back and deny it.
Oh, yeah. I've done that enough times as well. Now I've learned a little something not to, yeah, that basically pushing it away makes it last a lot longer. So now it's just feel it to heal it.
Yeah. So you're on Koh now, is that right? You still there?
Yeah, I'm still here. I've you could say upgraded, but I mean it's not it's still I'm basically on the beach, but I last time you saw me I was in my tent still, I think.
Yeah,
So
let's talk
I
about that because when I bumped into you in Thailand, you had been literally living on a tent on the beach rent free, right? Is that correct?
yeah. Yes, it was, yeah, correct. 4 months in 2019 and then 4 months last year, because why not? I mean, people, you think how much people pay to have a view like that. I was living like that with a view for free, literally the biggest bath in the world, the ocean, and yeah, just getting to really live in nature. And it felt so good to be living like this until it got a bit rainy, and then it was a bit of a different story.
And I think you said to me, I was asking you about that, and you said when you were living in the tent for so long, you felt like you almost couldn't imagine living in a house again because you'd be so like
This is
enclosed by all these
this
walls.
is agree. So I still have it now. I still have the same thing now, and that's why I don't know if you can see where I'm living, but it's complete. It's very open, And I don't know if you want to have a little look, but like I live on like it's almost like a platform. I
wow.
have a little room as well that I got them to take the mattress out because as you know I don't sleep on a bed. But I just sleep on this little platform here when it's not if it's not raining so much outside, or it's dry, and then I'm pretty much living outside because after living in the tent for that long, it's difficult to explain to people if they haven't experienced it, because I'd never thought I'd feel like that. But I just found it quite difficult to live in somewhere with 4 concrete walls again, because I felt like I was trapped, and that's why I chose to come to a place like this as a house. It's a bamboo hut. It's I mean, I don't know if many people would even consider it like a house. It's literally a bamboo hut, and I have the beach right here and this little platform to sleep on, and it's like being outside but with a cover, so if it rains I don't get wet.
Interesting.
Beautiful little house.
Excellent. And what's your diet like out there, and how do you eat on a daily basis?
Okay, so normally I will eat like a few meals a day. Usually I used to just graze, I just used to snack, but then I thought to myself, this doesn't feel so good to keep on eating all the time. So then I thought, usually after yoga or after exercise, I'll eat at around 10 a.m. And then the next meal will probably be around like, it's fruit meals. It's usually fruit meals. In the evening, sometimes I might have a salad, very rarely. And yeah, mainly just, even in the daytime, the first meal I usually have some juice. I had a little bit of an upgrade. I bought a juicer, but sometimes I still go to the juice stand. So I'll have like a juice, and around like 10 o'clock ish, and then in the afternoon I'll have whatever fruit I can basically find. It might be pineapples, might be mangoes or papayas. Right now the fruit called champadek is very much in season here, so
Wow.
I'm eating lots of that, and it's really nice. It's like kind of jackfruity, but not. I don't know how to describe it. Did you have it while you were here?
I I didn't, but I've had it before. Yeah,
Ah,
slightly smaller than jackfruit, but it's probably better,
yeah,
more interesting.
yeah. It's smaller and a bit squishier as well. And it's really lovely. It's like melt in your mouth. It's like honey. I love it. So I've been having that quite a lot. To be honest, I just have whatever's in season, really, whatever I can get hold of. Watermelon as well. I always love watermelon. It's my go-to snack. And then for evening meal, yeah, kind of the same thing, usually mono meal, or a salad if I feel like it, with a little tiny bit of tahini, or like I don't eat tahini very often because it's quite heavy, or avocado, or otherwise just lime. And
Do you ever
this
go
seems
to
to do me
the?
well. Today I
Do you ever,
go on.
sorry. Finish off what you're going to say about today.
Oh, I was just going to say today I haven't actually had anything. Right now it's 5 o'clock and I haven't had any food or water because I've been actually dry fasting. And I say I'm probably about 98% raw because yesterday I went on a hike and I had this juice that you can buy, and it's called Malay, and it's pasteurized. I didn't want to take up these big bottles of juice up with me to the mountain, and we left at 5:40 in the morning. So I didn't think too much about getting something from the juice shop, or like carrying it around in these heavy glass jars. I just bought a couple of these juice cartons from the 7-Eleven that are 100% fruit, they say, but I know they're pasteurized, obviously, otherwise they wouldn't keep. And in the past I've had these and they never caused me any issues, but yesterday I drank 2 of them, and then last night I felt like something's going to come up, like I'm going to chuck up.
Oh yeah.
But luckily I managed to sit up and not vomit. But then today I haven't felt hungry and I haven't felt thirsty yet because my body's still recovering from whatever that stuff that
Interesting.
previously I used to be able to be okay with it. Now my body's like, nope.
Yep, yep, yep.
So
And
I'm still cleaning.
what about coconut water? Do you drink much coconuts?
Oh, I love coconuts. Yeah, I love coconuts and coconut water. And that meat is actually something that I don't find too heavy to digest, and it's a good source of fat for me anyway. Better than avocado, better than durian, better than tahini. It's the meat of the avocado. It's like quite light, but it's satisfying. And if I need to eat a bit of fat, that's what I'll have usually. That's usually good.
And what about the durian? What's been your experience with durian, and where's been like the best you've got it and things like that?
Oh, durian! You got to be careful here, Ronnie, because I could talk all day about durian. For me, the best experience has been in Koh Phangan. Usually, it's actually last year up in the east side where they have all these farms, and I tried some last year that literally tasted it off lemon, like lemon durian, citrus durian. It was amazing.
Wow.
It was really amazing. I had some decent durian this year as well, but I wasn't craving it so much this year. I was more eating watermelon, to be honest. And it was still really nice what I did have, but last year's got to be the best one I've ever eaten, and it was. I don't really have problems digesting it because I don't eat that much of it in one go. That it's like your body knows. My body knows anyway when I've had enough of it,
Yeah.
And then if I leave it at that, it doesn't cause too many. It doesn't really cause any issues for me. It's a bit heavier. It's a bit more numbing than a watermelon will be because it's high fat content, but still, I mean, compared to I drank the pasteurized juice yesterday. I'm still recovering from that now, and I can eat a durian that is much higher fat than that juice, but it's raw and it won't do anything big for me.
So what is
I'm thankful for this.
what would be like some of your advice then for people who are starting off with this lifestyle, and maybe as well people that maybe want to travel as well and things like that? What would be some of your kind of advice on that?
So I would say about the fruit firstly, about the eating the raw food, the lifestyle. I would personally say do it gradually, because I mean, I even thought I did it gradually, having been vegetarian for life and then vegan for 4 years before I started doing the raw, because I decided to, well, I stopped eating the animal products in 2013, and then it was in 2000, at the end of 2017, that I started eating the exclusively just the raw food. And even then, I thought this was a gradual transition. Even then, I experienced a lot of emotional detox, which may not be the case for everyone, but that's what I had. And so I think maybe it would be, if I was to do it again, I would eliminate even slower than that. Like, really take my time with it. Maybe the biggest difference for me was not having the dairy, the cooked oil, and the gluten.
Yeah.
And if you can maybe transition one at a time, eventually, not have one of those things, not all in one go, because otherwise I don't even think it's sustainable. And the detox might be so much that it really discourages people. So I think better to do it slower and actually more sustainable than just to go raw vegan overnight and then it lasts for a couple of months and then finished. Because I mean, even sometimes people can feel physical fatigue because their body's finally starting to release the physical things. For me, I didn't feel much fatigue because I think there was not as much maybe physically to clean out. Still a lot of things, but maybe not as much as someone who's been eating a standard American diet or standard European diet, including meat and a lot of dairy products. So gradually would be my advice. And I think, gluten is a major one, cooked oil and dairy products, and obviously meat, to slowly come out of those ones. And even if in the beginning I was eating salt, right? I was eating this stuff. I was having onions, I was having garlic. This is raw. Many raw vegans still eat this stuff. I did that slowly. It was a while before I stopped having salt. It was a while before I wanted to not have onions and garlics anymore. There's no need to be perfectionist. There's no need to be 100%. Sometimes we need to even have a pizza, have a burger, whatever it is, to remind ourselves why we don't do that. This is important too. There is nothing, if we are kind of purist all the time, we might even forget why it is that we're doing what we're doing.
For sure.
For me, even yesterday, that was a reminder why I don't want to drink pasteurized juices anymore. And it was important that I did this. And I will, if someone asks me, are you 100% fruitarian or raw vegan, I will tell them no, I never have been and probably never will be, because I need sometimes these little reminders. Okay, not pizza or stuff like that, because then I'll actually be sick in bed for a week, but just like pasteurized juice or a few cashew nuts, or something like something like that that will remind me, oh, this is why I don't have this actually. So
Do you ever go to
yeah,
the raw restaurants on Koh Phangan?
not anymore really, no. Because to be honest, how many ways are there to cut up a cucumber? Because what I want is so simple.
Yeah,
I just want a bowl of mangoes or a half a watermelon. What's the point to go to a restaurant and have something I don't really want to have for a price that I don't really want to pay, and then it's got salt and whatever else in it? I just don't see much point. There is one restaurant called Food and Roots which does do salad if you ask, and also a really other one, really beautiful one called Taboon, which you can. I go there sometimes because they have a salad that is really grounding with beetroot and carrot in it. That I don't have beetroot and carrot in my house, but I will go somewhere like that to eat this beetroot and carrot salad with a little bit of tahini in it and a bit of avocado in it for a grounding meal. So I'm really thankful for that. But like maybe in a month, once or twice, if that, because
yeah,
the stuff is just so simple. My restaurant is a fruit shop.
yeah.
That's what I call my restaurant. But I would say that this stuff is really, really good for other people for transitioning.
Sure, sure.
It's if I was in England, if they had these restaurants near my house in England when I was transitioning from cooked to raw, it would have been a godsend. So I'm really happy they exist. Just because I don't eat in there doesn't mean I think that other people shouldn't. And I think they're a really valuable thing on this island. And great that people can go in there and eat healthy meals, which are maybe vegan and maybe don't have a huge load of salt in them like they might do otherwise,
Awesome.
or gluten free. Even stuff like that, gluten free is definitely a great step. And even if people don't want to be raw, just do what they can. Anything is something. That's advice I would say. Anything is something. Never be discouraged by just thinking, oh, that person's all fully raw, oh, I can't do that. It doesn't matter, just do what you can, even if it's just one raw meal a week. This is something.
Sure. Awesome.
It's something.
Awesome.
And about the traveling tips, it's cheaper than you think. That's what I'd say, because everyone was saying to me, oh, it's expensive, blah blah blah, oh, it's not possible for the girl to go traveling on her own with a tent in her hand luggage. It's definitely possible if you want it enough, because if you do research, like I spent a while researching that tent, managed to find something. And if you don't spend a lot in England, like I didn't naturally, not because I didn't want to, but simply because my lifestyle didn't really require it, the amount of the price that people pay for a coffee is more than I would spend in a whole day. So I really realised how cheap it is. Even when there was no COVID, it was pretty cheap. I used to pay 30 baht a night to stay in my tent in a national park that was on a beach in Krabi, for example. So it is possible, and it just depends how much you want it. And you meet amazing people, you have amazing situations when you trust that it's all going to be okay, and don't get yourself in dodgy situations. Like I don't drink the alcohol, I don't smoke.
Yeah.
I don't really, I mean, plant medicine, yes, otherwise drugs, no. For me, a lot of the money goes on that stuff otherwise. So
Yeah.
it's another thing. It just depends what our priorities are, really. There are things like work away, which you can use to volunteer abroad as well, if you really want to do something good for the community and give something back, and also have somewhere to stay. There's house sitting, there's house swaps, there's all kind of things possible. But the thing is just to make the step, to take the first step, which is to buy the ticket. And when you do that, everything comes in alignment. Everything works in your favor because you took the risk. This is the biggest thing. So yeah, that's been what I've learned, because if I'd have never left, I would have never known how easy it could be. And if I can do it, anyone can, because even people used to, I couldn't even get on a bus by myself. I was so scared in England of doing everything. So university taught me a lot to be independent, and also, yeah, traveling taught me a lot, that you can rely on yourself, you can do it, you can face your fears, and when you face them, you realize, oh, there was actually really nothing there much to face. It's more in our mind than it is in reality. So take the risk. And if you want to come to a warm environment, believe that you're worthy of it. Believe that it's something that you can do and it's something that you deserve, and everything will conspire to help you do it.
Thank you very much for the chat today. And how do people, what's your kind of plans for the future, and how do people connect with you if they want to follow what you're doing or get in touch with you?
Thank you, Ronnie. Thank you for this kind of podcast. It's been wonderful. And I would say right now I focus a lot on inner work. I'm focusing a lot on inner work because I realized that, like I was saying earlier, it can be very easy to just distract myself, to go out and do some job. And of course, this looks better to the outside world than just sitting meditating all day. It looks more like we look like we have more purpose in our life if we're outwardly doing something that other people can talk about and recognize. And right now I'm figuring that out, but more what I'm figuring out is what's on the inside, because I don't just want to go and do something on the outside if I don't feel good to be alone by myself, if I don't feel good to be happy, in inverted commas, doing nothing. So right now I'm spending a lot of time with myself. I'm teaching myself guitar, which I've been learning for a while, but now I'm putting in a more consistent practice. I am learning some new little skills that can help me to be like concentrated on one thing, such as macrame, like tying these little knots with things, some arts and crafts, and just generally getting to the point where I make my inner peace my responsibility, so that outside I'm not expecting everything off of everyone. And this is what I feel is the best thing that I can do right now for myself and for the world. Because when you love yourself truly, when you know that you can be happy by yourself, when you get to that point, you don't expect things from other people and you don't grab things from other people, which is what I was doing probably up until recently without even realizing it. So I've recently had a really big wake-up call, and I feel humbled by it, and it's made me suffer, and then it made me kind of realize that I'm everything I need, and it's all in here. But I didn't know that until recently, because only recently I've got a chance to be this alone, to be this much by myself. And so the things I'm focusing on right now, I want to share my poems and my writing. I've been writing quite a lot recently, because sometimes when you have these experiences, they give you little insights as well, and you start to write. So I've got a few things that I've got to share on my website, which I recently made. It's called Radiantly Roshni. Maybe I can give you the link for it. And I share these things on Instagram as well. But right now, for me, it's a lot about personal growth and inner growth, and taking that time to really get to know myself before I do a lot in the outside world, because otherwise for me, this is just doing it out of distraction and doing it to get a sense of self-worth, because I want to make sure that sense of self-worth is there from the start, even when I'm doing nothing, basically.
That's really great, Roshni. So Radiantly Roshni on Facebook, Instagram, and your website as well. We definitely will put some links below. Thank you for joining us today. Look forward to seeing you again. And really, I think that's been a really helpful and interesting podcast. And it's always good to hear about someone that's sticking to a almost entirely fruit diet as well. It's really great. Thank you very much. And thanks everyone for watching and listening. We really encourage you to maybe share this with other people you think it might help. You can go to fruitfest.co.uk to join our newsletter for more notifications, and to learn more about the Fruit Festival that will be happening once again for the 9th occasion in July 2022. But also we have a number of other events coming up and other things that you might be interested in, so stay in touch. Subscribe to the podcast, send it to others, give us a good rating, whatever you want to do, and thank you very much for listening. For now, see you in the next episode of the Love Fruit Podcast.